give the birds to take them through the malt? So
just write this down. You want a quarter of a bag of that, right? So that's 1/4.
Quarter bag of
that malting mix,
right?
Now you want a full bag of wheat.
Yeah.
Right. You want 2.5 kilos of armiform.
Yeah.
And 1 kilo of black minerals.
Right.
Right. Mix all that together. Now you keep giving them that until they've gone through the mould. Right. I mean, all I'm doing this for is I just want to see before I lock them up over the winter. That's all I'm doing this for. I'll have a look at them, watch them through, and then when I see that most 90% are doing it, I'll shut them up and I'll fly them every 3 or 4 days. Right, so that's what I'll feed them all the time. Right, now when they're through the malt, you don't just change them off of that, you just keep increasing the wheat into that until eventually what happens is that runs out and you end up with all wheat.
So what happens is when that's the first bit of feed, right?
Yeah.
So when you come to your second feed and it's like bottom up barrel, you don't buy these 3 things, you just get the wheat and top it up and then it's done, isn't it?
That's it.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
And you top it up and what happens is on the changeover, right?
It's slow.
It's slow. If you take them off of the young bird or the conditioner and put them straight on wheat, most of them pigeons will be eating small stuff. They'll be eating all the small stuff first and they'll eat the wheat afterwards, right? Now, if you change them straight from that to wheat, half of them won't fucking eat.
Yeah,
they'll leave it. You'll see them picking at it, but they ain't eating it.
They'll just drop out of the mouth again.
Yeah, and they're looking for that stuff out of the conditioner again. So what you do is, if you change it over nice and slow, right?
They get used to it,
They get used to it and they eat more wheat because they're more hungry. But they can eat the little bits out of it, but they still eat the wheat at the same time, right? And the less there is, the more they'll eat the wheat.
And then like eventually it's just like turned over on it.
Yeah, and turned over on it.
And that's like helped them through the malt.
It's
the bird's nice and healthy.
Yeah.
And then they're just back on normal feed again for the year.
You feel them, they're like silk.
Yeah, bloody hell. They look heavy but they're light.
Yeah. And they just flew for what, 45 minutes, isn't they?
Yeah, 45, 46 minutes.
Yeah.
Did you? Also, Dave, when it comes to the feed, can you please explain to the viewers how you get the birds to like be on the top and then like pull them down again, or vice versa?
There ain't such a thing as being on the top and pulling them down. If your pigeons are in that condition, where they're in good condition, and they're flying 45 minutes each time, regardless of whether they're flying on one wing or whether they're fucking working or not, it don't matter. They ain't got to be working. Yeah. As you bring them down slow, right, over a period of 10 or 12 days, you'll see the pattern of the pigeons change. They'll go from flying in a circle, and you'll start to see them elongate the circle. And as you still bring them down slow, they'll increase in time. They won't decrease in time. They'll increase in time.
And they just drop all of a sudden.
And then when you get to the fucking point where they're doing a figure of 8, they'll start to work a little bit. They will. And then as soon as they'll do that, they'll go up to about 2.5 hours, and a good 2.5 hours as well. And you keep flying them, right? All of a sudden they'll go to the 2.5 hours, and the next time you let them out, they'll do 20 fucking minutes.
That's when you've got to start building them up again.
And what they'll do is they'll come out and do a break when they come out, and they'll do a break when they come in, and with the fuck all in between you. Then you bring them down, and that's when you start to build them up. You let it keep them in for 3 or 4 days.
More grub.
More grub. Don't fucking chuck piles of grub in at them because they don't need it. Can and a quarter for 22 birds, a can and a half for 24 birds. Give them like a quarter of a tin of young bird or conditioner. Just something to tweak them.
To give them that kick.
Yeah. And then on the day before you let them out, put some electrolytes in the water. Right? And the electrolytes give them energy. It boosts the energy.
Is that similar to homophone? I mean, no, what's the other thing called?
Aviform.
Yeah, aviform.
No, it's entirely different. Electrolytes is just a vitamin. It is an energy boost. It is.
And how often would you give that to your birds?
Well, you just get them. You can get them every week if you want to. I mean, there's 100 things that you can do with pigeons. You can, right. Let's say you just want your birds in good condition, right? So you garlic them 3 days a week, right? You take them off the garlic, put them on clean water for the next 4 days, you know. But don't go down the shop and buy garlic. Buy clover garlic. Get a 5 litre, 10 litre bottle of water, crush your garlic up, put it in it, and leave it. It'll take about 2 weeks to mature, and it'll go creamy white. Give them that. What that does is cleans the nasals, it cleans the blood, it cleans the kidneys, liver, all the intestines. It cleans the fucking lot out of them. It does. And it keeps the respiratory good. They can breathe properly. They can, because the nasals are clear. There's 101 things you look for before you come on to flying them. There is. As you're in training, I put a kit out and I watch that kit from when it gets out till it drops. I'll never go in the shed and clean the shed out. You've never seen me do it. I'll watch it from when it gets out till it drops. Because I want to know what them pigeons are doing, whether they're coming onto the roll, whether there's any pigeons starting that's looking a bit fucking silly. You want to know everything about them. You do. And you can't get to know everything about them by putting the pigeons out and going in the fucking shed or talking to your mate. Your head's got to be up there. So I've done it for fucking 50 years when my head's been stuck up in the air. It is. And like, I flew tipplers for 21 years. I did well with them. I had them over 20 hours. When you condition a tippler, it's entirely different to conditioning a roller. But what you learn through that, you learn what every individual seed does to a bird. And I used to feed 15 seeds to my tipplers, right? And I'd feed them every 12 hours from Wednesday to Saturday. Every 12 hours I'd feed them. When I started feeding them, the first feed they got 6 peas each. Second feed they got 5 peas each. Third feed they got 4 peas until they didn't get no peas. Right? And all your big seeds like your chairs, groats, hemp, they'd all start to reduce as well because you take them off the big seeds one by one. Every day you take one of your bigger seeds away. So that we're flying on all the small seeds. So what you're doing then is you're putting the weight on at the beginning of the week and you're taking the weight and you're creating muscle. Right? So as you carry on with them small seeds, you'd have red dare-eye, white dare-eye, plain canary, mixed canaries, loads of different seeds. Gold of pleasure, blue moor, you would. Now gold of pleasure is a stimulant. Blue moor's a stimulant. It's opium, gold of pleasure is. It is. So what that does is when they start to cramp up, it relaxes the body so they can get through that cramp. Because when you start to fly them, when you got them on a long day, you've got to have them pigeons fairly heavy when they go out, so that through the day they can fly it off. And what happens is when you get them heavy, it keeps them low when they first go out. Keeps the pigeons down. So that when you start to watch them, they'll fly at a nice height. But if you get them pigeons where they're in condition but got no body weight on them, they'll be up there and you won't fucking see them and you'll get disqualified. You will. So that's why you put the weight on. That's why you put the weight on these rollers. That's why you keep them in that condition. You've never seen these change height all night. Because there's no need to. But you've never seen them go fast either.
Just a slow, steady pace.
Yeah. And that's how you want your birds. You don't want them fucking racing around like maniacs. If you've got them racing around like maniacs, there's something wrong. And there's something wrong with your feeding. So what you've got to do to change that feeding is what most people do, and a lot of people do it. They'll get the pigeons and they'll start racing around and they'll be fucking on one wing and all sorts of things. Instead of thinking and wondering why he's doing that, what they do is they start to cut the food back, cut the food back, cut the food back, until the pigeon's got no guts in it at all. And what happens then is they start to come down early, or they start to go up in the fucking tops, because the air pressure down here is heavier than the air pressure up there. And it's hotter up there than it is down here. It is, and that's why they do it. If you watch a kids of tipplers, right, and you have to watch them tipplers over a period of a hot sunny day, right, you'll see them, it's a thermal. And you'll see them sit in that thermal for about 2 or 3 hours. They won't fucking move. They'll just go round and round in circles. And you'll see them lifting with the thermal. And they'll pop, the thermal will shift and they'll lose it. So then the pigeons will start coming down, they'll pick the thermal up again, and they'll start doing it again. And that's what they do. They use the thermal to reduce the fucking weight of the fly. It's with rollers. You start seeing them and you start to see them fuck about, flying fast, going on one wing. But the first thing you got to do with them pigeons is shut them up. Right? If you're flying them every day or every other day, put them on once every 4 days, once every 5 days. Right? Let the body come up, let them build the body up, let them get some strength in it. Right? Once they've got some body weight, then you can let them out and they won't warp. And they'll start to slow down in flight. They won't do as much work, I'll grant you that. But what they'll do is they'll do everything steady, everything in the right order. You'll see the kit will come tighter. They'll fly better, they'll fly longer. They will. And they'll fly to nice height. Because they've got everything they need. Now, when they're at that point, that's when you can start to look at them to bring them down slowly. And when I say slowly, I mean over 10, 12, 14 days. Right? Then you can increase the flying. You can. First time you fly them, you watch them, you'll leave them in 2 days, you'll fly them again. Watch them, leave them in 2 days, fly them again, watch them. And all the time you're doing this, you're reducing the corn. You're reducing the feed. Now, as you do this, they start to increase in time. And the reason why they're increasing in time is because they're turning the fat into muscle. Right? And when you start to muscle them up, that's when they start to get high and they start to increase in time. But they shouldn't go high. They've got a decent type, don't get me wrong, but they shouldn't go to the point where you can't see them out like that. Then you'll feed them, you'll fly them every other day. You will. And as you're doing it, they'll keep increasing, and they'll increase up to about 2 to 2.5 hours. When they hit that 2 to 2.5 hours barrier, right, you'll see an instant drop where they'll go from 2.5 hours to 20 minutes. That's when you start to fly the muscle off, and that's when you start to hurt them. So you're flying the muscle off, now they're flying on the muscle, they're taking that off, and they're flying on body weight. That's where you lose that. If you hold one of them pigeons tonight, it was nice and cut, weren't it? Fat and set in your hand, it was nice and light, right? Now, what most pigeons are like, they'll go in like that, and you'll feel the keel. When you can feel that keel and that body's inwards, that bird ain't never going to do you any fucking good. It ain't. Because it ain't got strength to do you any good. All these pigeons have been knocked down, and I'd go round, if people were honest, I'd go round a fly, take us to All England, and I'd record everything that they said they fed them, or everything that they say they do to them. And I'll have a little bet with you, right, if you write the working times down, that all these pigeons that have been run down will never work over 10 minutes. They always go flat. And they'll start figuring it out, and they'll just start going flat. Because they ain't got the energy to carry it on. But you get a pigeon that's been worked properly in the right condition, and that pigeon will carry on working all the way through. It won't stop. And if you're clever enough, I can do it when I put my mind to it. You can hold a kid's pigeons for 15 weeks. You can. And every time you fly them birds, they'll put a show on. And they'll do it all the time. But it's not through flying them. What it's through is you'll pick that kid's pigeons out and you'll fly them every week. I didn't learn this because I was watching the pigeons. I learned this because I worked away. Right? And what I did, I worked away and Jill fed them. Right? And she'd go in the shed and I'd say there were 20 pigeons there getting a can of food or a can and a quarter of food. And she'd do it, and that's all she'd give them, and she'd put them back in the box. Right? Now, I won't come back from Sunday till Saturday. So you should be doing this every day. And she used to ring me every day. And she'd turn around to me and she'd say, the pigeons were hard to get in tonight. And I'd say to her, right, you've got to increase the food because you're bringing them down. You've got to increase the food until they go back in the box properly. So tomorrow you'll give them more food until they start to go back in the box when you want them to. Not keep coming out looking for grub. Right? That's when you got your balance, when you were doing that. And I used to come home, I'd put them out on a Saturday. They'd go out, they'd do 20 minutes. They'd do bits and bobs, but that were it. You'd come home, you'd put them out on the Sunday, and they closed up and they started working with it. Now, I never changed them pigeons. I flew them in, about 5 competitions. I never changed them once, never changed the feed or anything. And them pigeons were in the first 2 in every competition. So they either won it or come second. Really. And that weren't in small flies, that were in the European fly, South African fly, South African qualifier, World Cup qualifier, All England, every one of them were in the first 2. So it's not, you don't have to be hard on rollers. If you get them in the right condition and you watch them, not just watch them outside. When you're bringing them pigeons down, right, you'll have them up here and they'll be rorting, the cocks will be trying to fucking shag everything inside of it because you've got the cocks split from the ends, right? So when the ends come down, they're all diving in front of the box, playing up, going mad. Now, as you bring them pigeons down, right, them pigeons will start going quieter and quieter and quieter. And the point when you get them where you can't hear a fucking thing in that shed, that's when you know you're nearly there. It is. Because when they go quiet, right, being interested in the ends, what they're interested in is food. Or they're interested in you flying them and they'll start working and they'll work very nice. But it's not a period of saying you're listening to this conversation and you're going in the back garden and you think, I'll do that, and because it don't work in the first week, you go and chuck it in stutch. That's what most people do. You can't do that. You got to work on something and you've got to work on it for months and months and months before you get it right. And it's never going to come right if you don't do it. And that's where they go wrong. Oh, I tried that last week, it didn't work. I tried it the week before, that didn't work. I tried building it up, that didn't work. But they're only doing it for 2 or 3 fucking days. It takes you like 3 weeks to change the pigeon's condition. You can't change it in a matter of 2 minutes. Everything's got to be done right.
Gradually over time you have to change it.
Slowly but surely. Like you said, you can't change the pigeon's condition. Can you straight away? It just won't be happy with
Well,
it.
you just got to look at yourself. You can't go from being a chump like you are every day eating, right? Then be a fucking marathon runner in 3 days, can you?
Yeah, Bill.
You can't do it.
Junk.
You can't. It's true, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right, Dave, 100%.
Well, every living animal's exactly the same. It is. You can't just say, oh, well, I want you to do this now and you've got to do it. It ain't going to work. Fucking hell.